A while back I built a replica of a Fiat 500 for a customer of mine, and that customer came back to do another replica for him. And he wanted me to repaint this one to look like the actual one he used on a rally he did a couple of years back, and keep one for himself and also give one to the friend he did it with. So we're starting with this base model from Maxi Champs, a sister company of Mini Champs. It's a 143 scale die-cast car. We're of course going to strip it from all the plastic parts, remove the paint, and start the rebuilding process and also repainting, of course. The paint stripper I'm using is the usual one I use from Zero Paints. It has been used a couple of times on different colors and then reused again, so the color is not as clear as it is in the bottle, but it is the same stuff. The metal body is put into a plastic bag, then of course the paint stripper is poured into it, and I let it soak for about a minute until all the paint starts bleeding off. Once the stripper has done its job, I pour the remaining of the stripper back into the bottle for reusing later, then clean the body off in the sink, removing all of the paint, sand the body with a 400 grit sandpaper, and then move on to cleaning it again and go on to some primer. Once the primer was applied, I let it sit for about 60 minutes to cure, and then moved on to applying the color. The color I'm using here is a custom mix I did myself from various shades of blue and green. I just kept adding different shades of the blue and different shades of the green until I was satisfied with the color, and it was a good match. I applied about 2 coats of the color, let it sit and cure, then applied 1 good coat of clear. Once this first coat of clear was applied, I let it sit and dry for about 24 hours before I started sanding it back with some 3000 grit sandpaper to make it as smooth as possible, and also so I could apply some of the bare metal foil for all the metal trim. And then after that has been applied, I clean it up a bit and I can apply the final coat of clear to protect the metal trim and also make it super nice and glossy again. And by sanding it previously, the next coat of clear will stick to it and make a very strong bond. So now that the clear coat has been applied for a second time, I can set that aside for a couple of days and in the meantime move on to the interior. I'm going to paint it with some Vallejo brown color, just pour that into the airbrush and add some thinners. I don't have a specific mixture, I just keep adding thinners until it flows through the airbrush nice and smoothly. It's as simple as that, as I can't use standard measurements as the paint is a bit older and some paints are a bit thinner, others are a bit thicker, so I just go by feel and just keep checking until it flows through nicely. So the first coat is applied, I let it sit and dry for about 10 minutes in between coats on these Vallejo colors, and then keep adding more coats until I'm satisfied with the coverage. Now the door cards on this car are actually wrong, as the car itself is a 2-door and these door cards are obviously for the 4-door. Now I'm pretty sure there is also a station wagon version of this car made by the same manufacturer, and the interior and chassis are pretty much identical, so I think they just saved a bit of money there. Nonetheless, it was painted up, I added a couple of the details, and then could move on to installing it later on. For the color itself, the brown was a bit too clean, as the interior on the actual car was a bit older. I decided to weather it a bit with some brown Tamiya Panelline accent color, just to give it a bit of a worn, weathered leather look. The top of the door panels are supposed to be in the exterior body color. I kind of forgot that, so I had to do it later on. At this stage, just with a brush, again mixing a couple of the Vallejo colors together until I was satisfied with the color that came out. After that was pretty much done, I could move on to the final assembly. With the final parts put in place, I needed to add a couple small details around with a bit of silver trim paint and also a bit of clear paint for the indicators. And there you have it, another one finished. Now, of course, as I said in the beginning of the video, one was for the customer and one was for a friend of his. So as you can guess, there were actually two built at the same time, in the same spec, in the same manner. So these were sent over to the customer. He was really happy with the outcome, and I hope to see him back for more builds in the future. Now, if you have any ideas for future builds, feel free to leave them in the description down below, and also let me know if you have any questions as always.